This is Democracy Watch. Mark, something that I'm looking at in the future is the electoral college map. So there is reporting right now suggesting that California is poised to lose as many as 8 electoral votes, depending on how much population we lose after the next census, and that Texas and Florida, for example, could gain those seats. That changes the map fundamentally for Democrats in this next decade moving forward. It wouldn't be enough then to just win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania for 270 electoral votes. We would affirmatively need more states than that. So is that something that you're thinking about now?
Look, I am always thinking about what the demography of the country means for elections. It's obviously this is a big deal when it comes to the electoral college in the future. It's a very big deal for Senate elections and House elections in 2 years. It's a big deal for the off-year elections that are coming up in 2025, right? Because populations are not static. It was a few years ago that we were talking about Virginia being a swing state. Now it's a pretty reliable Democratic state. We were talking about Georgia being a pretty solidly Republican state, and now it has 2 Democratic senators and is very much a swing state. And so these demographic changes have a lot of impact, and it's one of the reasons why I don't view the things you're talking about as necessarily bad news, because with those increased seats or increased electoral votes will come increased population, and those people are coming from somewhere. And so states like Texas, we are seeing get more and more Democratic. Now, Colin Allred came up short in the Senate race this time, but he got closer than previous nominees. And each time in Texas, we see the Democrats are getting closer and closer. And so as population goes into those state like Texas, it becomes more and more of a swing state. And I think we have seen that in a number of the Sun Belt states. Arizona, another state that, if you and I had been talking 4 years ago, Arizona was not in the conversation. Arizona is now very much in the conversation, regularly, or maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it wouldn't have been in the conversation, but before 2020. But as people move, things change. Also, the coalitions. There's a lot of talk right now about how the Republican coalition in 2024 was growing and bigger than it was in 2020. That's true. But you know what? The Democratic coalition is also evolving, and these coalitions are not static. And so what looks like in 2024 one way can look very, very different in 2026, and certainly by the time we get to 2032.
Well, I do want to talk about Texas, for example, because you brought that up. If Democrats were looking to put a new state in play, obviously, we've been waiting a long time for Texas to flip blue. Do you think that, because the presidential margin had been shrinking year over year, I think it was within 5.5 points back in 2020 before, of course, it ballooned up to 14 points in this latest election cycle. Do you think that Texas could possibly be in play moving forward?
I do. I mean, I think that the fundamentals of Texas are still going in the Democrats' direction. I say that not just because of the Latino vote, which has gotten a lot of attention this year about who is winning the Latino vote and in what margins, but also, what the effects of increased numbers of suburban and urban voters are. Texas is getting a lot of its population growth in its urban centers, in Harris County, in Dallas County, and those are becoming as royal blue, as dark blue as they are in other parts of the country. So, every time an Elon Musk, moves his high-tech workers to Texas, Elon Musk may be a right-wing lunatic Republican, but a lot of those highly educated workers are actually pretty solidly Democratic. So, I think that, again, what the coalition of voters in Texas looks like may be different than what people were predicting, 4 or 5 years ago. But do I think Texas is starting to look a lot more like a big swing state with urban centers and more rural areas that are redder? Yeah, I do.
What's the likelihood of progress toward the national popular vote Interstate Compact?
All right. So this is, for people who don't know, an effort by states to say that they will pledge their electors to whomever wins the national popular vote. So rather than New York saying its electors goes to whoever wins in New York, it would go to whoever wins the national popular vote. And in order for this to take effect anywhere, it has to encompass enough states that are over 270 electoral votes. So in other words, it doesn't apply anywhere until it applies to enough states for it to take effect. Typically or historically, Democratic states have been in favor of this and have been adopting it. Republican states have been avoiding it. And I don't expect that to change, even though Donald Trump won the popular vote here. I think that Republicans are still in the mindset that they are a minority party, and I think that's true, notwithstanding the outcome of this one election. I think that we will continue to see Democrats get more raw votes than Republicans. So I think they will continue to stymie it, and it will not go into effect until either that dynamic changes in a way that convinces Republicans, or until Democrats take control of enough state legislatures and governors to have it take effect in enough states.
You don't think that Republicans winning the popular vote in this election and the prospect of so many Republicans who are basically disenfranchised by virtue of living in places like California and New York, where they're blue states anyway, you don't think that will have any impact on at least making other states open to the national popular vote interstate compact?
No, because number one, Republicans don't really care about their voters. They care about power. So the fact that there are disenfranchised people, like they are the party of disenfranchisement. So like that's not going to be their worry. And as to the first point, I think it's a really important thing you raise here, Brian. The Republican Party won in 2024 the presidency, and it retook the Senate. But it is not an ascendant party. It does not act like a party that is confident that it is ascendant. What do I mean by that? The Republican Party in the 80s under Ronald Reagan saw itself as an ascendant party, and it acted as such. It acted in a way that it saw the expansion of voting not as a threat, but actually as an opportunity. Remember, Ronald Reagan actually signed the broadest reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act in 1982, one of the most important reauthorizations of the Voting Rights Act. And he was able to confidently do so because he saw the Republican Party as ascendant. In the 1990s, Bill Clinton oversaw an ascendant Democratic Party. And you saw the Democratic Party be willing to do things that might not be in the short-term best interest of their electoral prospects, but which they saw as long-term benefit. But certainly, Barack Obama, when he came into power, swept into power, was very much saw an ascendant Democratic Party. I would say George Bush did also in 2004. Republicans are not acting like an ascendant party. They're not trying to expand the electorate. They're not trying to expand outreach into more communities. What is Donald Trump talking about? He's talking about punishing his enemies. He's talking about rewarding his friends, right? Yeah. He's not talking about trying to find ways to cross the aisle, find ways to moderate positions, to truly lock in a generational change in voting behaviors. I think the Republican Party under Donald Trump remains a very insecure group of people who think that they are on borrowed time.
Right. I agree. And look, I know that you have been beating the drum about everything that the Trump administration will do, has done, and will do moving forward. So for those watching right now, to support Marc and his team for the invaluable work that they're doing, please make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet he founded to focus on everything voting in elections. And there will never be a time where this stuff is more important than right now as we head forward into the uncertainty of Trump's second term. So I'll put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.